That's true.
Right. So like I've had it like so all right. So with the pilot for NBC, at the end of it, like do my thing. It's opposite Derek Luke. I'm like, oh my God, I shot it back in Boston. I'm like, this is amazing. This is like the dream come true, right? At the end of the pilot, director walks up to me at the hotel in Boston. He goes, hey, listen, when they pick this show up, they're going to expand your role a lot. Like you really impressed all the brass at NBC. This dude had no reason to say it to me, right?
Right.
Like he directed the pilot, right? And he was even like, yeah, I'm not going to be here for like the series, but like, yeah. Plus you got all the people like, hey, like you ready to come to Boston, you ready to move back? And it's like, you kind of be like, yeah, like I hear you, right?
Right.
So you got the director telling me this. Then I go in to do ADR for a couple of like the lines that I had in the show or whatever. And they're like, Elimu, like it's looking really good. We were, when the pilot got greenlit to pilot, it was like one of 5 pilots to watch. And then when it was, after it was shot, it was like 3 pilots to watch. We didn't get picked up. Right? But inside the moment,
right,
like what he said, what he saw in terms of my performance, like, yeah, like it's all good. So I had to learn these things the hard way. So with The Resident, when my boy was like, yo, you they have to give you the job. I said this to him. I said, they give me the job, great. I know I'm good. This might all just be practice for when I go to do True Story. This might just make me a better actor for that.
right.
And then what happened was, I have a private basketball coaching business, and I was leaving a client's house, and my phone rings, and it's the guy that runs my agency. He's like the head of the agency, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm like a little tired, but I'm good. Like, how are you?" And I previously just sent out like some like $25 like liquor cards to all my agents just to be like,
right,
keep it moving, everything's all good.
Right.
So he was like, I'm doing well, but not as good as you're about to be doing. And I was like, why is that? He goes, you were pinned, you were the choice, you got the gig. And I said, which one? And he goes, oh, that's right, you've been auditioning a lot. I'm like, yeah. He's like, The Resident. So he tells me the dates. And I'm like, that's awesome. I said, but I'm already working on Kevin's show. And he was like, huh? He was like, like, what are the dates? And I said, well, the dates were the 1st through the 19th, but now they're like the 14th through the 22nd or whatever it was. And one of them was conflicting. So then my agent was kind of like, he goes, shit. He goes, and one of the showrunners on Kevin's show was one of my close friends. So he was like, I know like your friend is on the show. Like, are you gonna, like, I said, dude, if we got to go do The Resident, because Kevin's show was paying me a certain amount of money, The Resident was paying much more. So
what was a better opportunity in your mind?
The better opportunity in my mind was The Resident.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Because bigger network, right?
Well, it wasn't even that, because like, I mean, you're going to get visibility on a Kevin Hart show for
That's
sure.
True. That's
right?
true. Yeah.
But I would have been playing a detective, which I've played many, many times. Right.
Mm.
It would have been like 2 really like cool scenes, as opposed to I'm in like an entire storyline in the entire episode over here. And listen, I'm a father and I got bills and stuff like that. The money between Kevin's show and The Resident was significantly different. Right?
Okay.
Right. And then, sometimes it's like, so my agent was like, he's like, oh, is your friend going to get mad? And I was like, hey, ain't nobody get mad. Like, this is just business. Like, I understand you guys trying to like, do the politically correct thing. Cause my friend, he's a pretty big producer. Right. Okay. So I was like, listen, like it's all good. And so then that's how they tried to work out that I could do both, but because of one date conflicting, I couldn't do both. So that's how I wound up getting The Resident. But it was still a situation where I was like, as an actor, you kind of like wish for things.
Right.
Sometimes you have to see how they come around. I was like, oh, like you always hear about people going from like this project to this project or working on 2 at once. I had the 2 at once. It just didn't work itself out. You know what I mean?
You were blessed with a position that a lot of actors are not blessed with, to have 2 choices
Yep.
where it comes down to either the Kevin Hart thing or the Resident. Obviously, I'm glad you went with the Resident. More money, for you and your family. You know what I mean? And and blessings to you on that. So you were in a unique position that a lot of actors are not in. Especially right now. With everything that's going on, thankfully everything already is about to open back up and stuff like that. Hopefully get back to normalcy. But that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So you mentioned right now that you do private basketball coaching.
Yes.
You used to play for Syracuse, right?
I did. I walked on in '93. I don't know if the record still holds, but at the time I was the first walk-on to ever play in the first half of a game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there was like a story that went with that, like very briefly. Basically, like I walked on the team. That's a whole story in itself. But so I get on the team, and when you're in practice and stuff, you get your ankles taped. Right. And so I'd go in every day, get my ankles taped, and go out there, and I'd play and stuff like that. And like the role of a walk-on is just to be like a practice player. But because I was good, I was recruited for like D2 and D3 schools coming out of high school. I had like one like D1 offer that my coach didn't tell me about, but my best friend had died my senior year. So I didn't know if I wanted to play basketball or whatever. Right. So I get to Syracuse. I tried out one year. I had dreads, didn't make the team. They told me, if we need somebody to practice, we will call you. Next year, cut my hair off like it is now. Mm-hmm. And so I make the team, right?
Okay.
Get my ankles taped, all the rest of that stuff. Cut to the first game. And I go into the trainer's table, trainer's room beforehand, and I'm like, I put my foot up to get it taped, and they're like, walk-ons don't fucking play. Put your foot down. Like, that's exactly what the guy says, right? And I was like, I kind of look around to like my teammates, and they're kind of cracking up or whatever. And I was like, oh shit, like this is crazy. Cut to end of the first half. There's about like 2.5, 3 minutes left. And the coach is like, Elimu. Yeah, I mean, like my shooting shirt flew off before it didn't hit the ground before I got in the game. And it went like 0 for 6 that game or whatever. And then I came back in like at halftime and put my foot back up on the table and was like, tape my shit up. So between playing, then I went overseas with the team and played in professional leagues over there. My second year, and then when I came back, I had finished academically 4.5 years, but I hit my coach and was like, yo, like, let me get a scholarship. And he was like, if anybody deserves it, you do. So then I was on scholarship. And that's the year that we lost to Kentucky in the championship. So I got to go to the Final Four and the championship game and all that stuff.
Man, I bet that experience was awesome right there.
That's one of those things where it's like, I was 12 years old and I used to watch college basketball was my favorite sport. And I don't know what it was. I was always drawn to watching Syracuse. And so when I would go on recruiting trips, coaches, I remember I went on a recruiting trip to Brandeis and we're walking through the campus and the coach says to me, he goes, if you could play any place that you would want to play, where would you play? I was like, Syracuse. He goes, you'll never play there. And he listed down all these reasons. I walked into my senior year. I went to like an academic trip at Syracuse. I snuck off, went over to the basketball. It was Manley Fieldhouse at the time. Now it's a Carmelo Anthony Fieldhouse.
Okay.
I walk in and I see this coach sitting there. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? My name is Elimu Nelson. I basically averaged like almost a triple-double my senior year. And he looks at me and he goes, you're too skinny. You'll never play here. The day I made the team, it was my assistant coach, Wayne Morgan. I said, you remember me? And he was like, oh yeah, no, yeah, I remember you. I remember you. So that's a lot of my journey has been like that. And so for private coaching, there was like years and years where I played in like little like semi-pro leagues out here before like I ruptured my Achilles. And then I had friends that were like actors when I first started out that were like, sort of bigger name actors, like, oh, I'm doing like this basketball thing, or I have this basketball audition. Could you help me out? So I show people stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And at some point, one of my exes, she was like, you should consider making this a business. And she kind of really got the ball rolling through the idea in my head. And it was like, oh, okay. So like I was driving for like Uber and Lyft, and then I had like one client. And then I used to be like up on this thing called Coach Up, right?
Okay.
Then I would get a lot of, if you go to like well, I'm not up there anymore because I haven't paid my fee in who knows how long. But like you get like all these reviews, and the better your reviews are, then they put you out to more people. And at one point, you search for like private basketball coach, Southern California, and it'd be like me and Sumaki Walker. And I was like, oh shit, that's crazy.
Oh
Uh,
shit. Yeah.
and then some of my clients would like go off the app, and they'd be like, they might go away for a little bit, then they come back and be like, hey, can I just like pay you, myself? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I can negotiate a rate or whatever. And then now I'm at the point where, because acting work has been good, I have some things that I'm working on writing wise as well. I've sort of streamlined down just like to like specific clients, because at one point I would take on any client anywhere, because I had to, supplement income and all the rest of it. But then it was like, are you really interested in basketball? Like everybody wants to be good, but nobody really understands like the work that it takes. And the way kids watch basketball these days, they're infatuated with the NBA. Shout out to the NBA. They have made it fun to watch the regular season, and they protect players. So it's really an offensive minded game at this point.
Right. Yeah, nobody's playing defense now.
Right. It's like it's not designed like that, because people don't want to watch what like I used to watch like in the 90s. And when I have like friends that went to the league, like when my friends went to the league, it was a situation where it was like, you have to be able to play defense. Like you have to, right? And it wasn't really about like 3-point shooting. You had to be tough. You had to hit the weight room. Like you still have to do all this stuff because the skills are amazing. But it was just a different time. So as I began to like coach kids and notice like, oh, a lot of you don't know like just basic stuff. Like kids will work on moves, but what they don't understand is like when you're working on a move or you're imitating a James Harden move or a Steph Curry move, that happens inside of a system that's run for them. They're seeing, spaces where they can get things off inside of a system, right? So they're just them doing like in their backyard by themselves versus when you're put into a system, how do you flourish inside of that? And then there's just, there's just very basic things that kids don't know how to do a crossover. They don't really know what a behind the back is for. They don't know what through the legs is. They don't understand how to push up on defense. Like they think that they just don't understand. And, for what I was good at in college, I was probably one of the better. I was known for my defense.
Okay.
I never really found like the rhythm of offense in college because I didn't have many opportunities to play. And some of the times I screwed myself on it. And there was a couple of times where I did really well. But I absolutely know what it is. I've experienced it, so I can teach it. I can also teach from the standpoint of I'm the guy that made it to the top of the mountain. Well, the top of the collegiate mountain, right? Correct. And even overseas with like the professional leagues I played in and stuff like that, but was never recruited. So there's also like a different energy to guys that have been catered to and expected all the time versus the kid that's been told no.
Me personally, I like that story better of somebody, a walk-on, like somebody that didn't have a scholarship, wasn't recruited. You just got on the court, you showed what you can do, and you got picked up. Not a lot of people can really say that. I think in a year, there might be maybe 5 to 10 players that can possibly say, hey, I'm a walk-on. But a lot of players, especially in basketball, it's really, really tough to get on the roster. It is really tough. And for you to do that, man, congratulations with that.
Thank you,
that's awesome. I mean, with your career, you played. So you just mentioned that you played professional ball in Europe, overseas, right? And then you played college basketball, and then you're an actor. Man, what is that you don't do? Because you also box at Blue Moon Boxing Gym.
Listen,
I love that shirt, by the way. I wanted to tell you that.
Yeah. Blue Moon has been such a blessing because like so I started sparring again, right? Like I have
Right.
about like 1,000 rounds sparring experience between like some pros would show me a lot of amateur fighters because I used to be a wild card, right?
Oh,
I was
okay,
a I
okay.
was a wild card for like, I mean, take away the pandemic, I've been a wild card since for like 15 years, right? Eric
Okay.
Brown's been my trainer the entire time when you came up and gave us all of us a pound. That
Right.
trainer, that's been he's like my brother. That's been my guy. So when I first got in to start training boxing, my whole thing was like,